4 months or so to go until Scots vote on independence. Alistair Darling is the leader of the Better Together cross-party group campaigning for Scotland to remain part of the UK. Alistair Darling, welcome. Could you lose this?
Well, at any referendum, there's bound to be some doubt about the result until the day. I think we've built the firm foundations on which we can build as we go into what is now the closing stage of a 2.5-year campaign. I believe the arguments are overwhelmingly on the side of Scotland being better off being part of the UK, but there's still a lot can happen. 4 months is a very long time.
And polls, while in your favour at the moment, are moving in the wrong direction for you. Why do you think that is?
Well, they're not. If you look at all the polls in the last 6 weeks or so, they show our lead either the same or they've been stretching. There was a closing about the turn of the year, and I've always said that I think it's going to be closer than people think. And you've got to watch headline polls. I mean, they're a snapshot. What I do know, and I think both sides know, is there's nearly 1 million people out of an electorate of 4 million who've still got to make their minds up. So it is all to play for.
Okay, let's talk about those people, the undecideds. How are you going to change your campaign tactics between now and the vote to try and pull those people in? Because let's face it, a lot of people have called it scaremongering, bullying, those tactics, which haven't worked.
Well, firstly, in this referendum, there's two arguments at play. There's arguments of the head, if you like, the hard economic arguments. There's also the emotional argument. People do feel emotionally about their country, but that cuts both ways. I'm Scottish, I'm proud of being Scottish, but I think it is the patriotic thing, if you like, for Scotland to remain part in the UK, to vote against independence. In relation to the economic arguments, we will continue to make the case for the UK, the wider market, the opportunities for businesses that come with that. But no one is going to stop us from questioning some of the assumptions and claims and downright bluster that are made on the other side, and we've done it to good effect.
But would you not agree the argument on the pound, on sterling, on the currency union, whether it's from the government here, from Barroso, that those tactics have been, to some degree, scaremongering tactics that have backfired on you?
Well, I don't agree with either of those propositions. Firstly, we know that the issue and the doubts about what currency Scotland would have cut through to the population. But if you look at the question of a currency union, it wouldn't be good for Scotland, because you'd have a much smaller country having to seek an agreement with a much larger country on tax and spending and borrowing. That isn't independence. And of course the economies would be quite different, because the Scottish economy would be very heavily dependent on oil. And from the rest of the UK's point of view, it would have to underwrite the Scotland's banking system, which is 12 times the size of our GDP. So it wouldn't work. And that then leads you to the next question: what if there isn't a currency union? Do we get our own currency? Do we join the euro? None of these questions can the nationalists answer, and no one's going to stop me from pointing that out.
Who is in charge of Better Together now? Is it you? Is it Douglas Alexander? Is it Gordon Brown? There seems to be some confusion as to who is making the decisions now.
Well, I don't know how on earth you can say that either. I run the Better Together campaign.
Yep.
There is also a campaign being run by each of the political parties in Scotland, because that's what the Electoral Commission has decided. So there's a Labour campaign, a Conservative campaign, a Liberal campaign, as well as an SNP campaign and a Yes campaign and a Better Together campaign.
Has your role shifted at all?
No, not at all. Nothing. We've been running now for over 2 years. We have got a lot of people, from various people, coming in to help us, as you'd expect as you come to the final closes, the final stages of this. But we've decided on the shape and character of our campaign. We've built the firm foundations over the last couple of years. All the evidence is that, yes, there are undecided voters, but we are winning them to our side. And we are doing that because we are making a positive case for staying in the UK. At the same time, we are pointing out some of the fallacies, some of the flaws in the argument on the other side.
Is it uncomfortable for you standing shoulder to shoulder with the Tories on this?
No, look, if one day there may be a referendum in the whole of the UK about Europe, there you will see people from different political parties saying, look, we disagree on lots of things, but on Europe we agree. So in relation to the question of independence, there are lots of people on both sides of the argument, actually, who disagree with each other on many day-to-day issues, but they say when it comes to such a big issue like this, where if we vote to leave, the decision is irrevocable, we stand together. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and indeed I would argue that the public actually would like politicians to agree where they do agree and leave the disagreements for where there really is a disagreement.
And you've said whatever happens, you're going to stay in Scotland, and you're going to stay in politics in Scotland?
What I've said is I'm not leaving Scotland. If you're asking me about what I do in political life, I've made it clear on numerous occasions that that's a decision I'll reach in the days following the referendum. I don't need to make that decision now, and I'll make it then.
I mean, it's been nasty, though, this whole process, and it's been long, as you know as well. In terms of whichever way this goes, there is a rift now in Scotland. Does that sadden you? Will that fire? Will that debate? Will that ever calm down?
Well, look, the debate about Scotland's constitutional future, my guess is it will go on. But what I hope is we get a result in September that puts the issue to bed for at least a generation. I think the worst possible outcome for Scotland would be to keep coming back to this issue again and again and again, when all the time things like our education system, the state of our health, all these things are taking second place to this debate about the Constitution. Now, I think most people who are not politicians will say, OK, after the result, that's it. Now, you're never going to unite politicians, but, you know, that's just the nature of things.
Do you regret, finally, anything about the way you've run this campaign and your tactics? Would you do anything differently if you were able to do it again?
Well, it would be much nicer if it was a much shorter and more compact campaign.
But in terms
that's just where it is. But no, I've made it clear 2 years ago when I launched the campaign, we would do two things. We would set out the positive case, both the emotional case as well as the hard-headed case, and nothing would stop us from questioning the other side. We have done that and we'll continue to do that. But it's our job, on both sides actually, to try and engage those people in Scotland who have reached the stage where they say, I just don't want to hear any more of this.
You scared a lot of Scots in the process,
we haven't. We haven't. All the evidence is that people in Scotland can now see the finishing post. That is why you're seeing on both sides their positions are hardening up, and you're seeing the floating voters, those people who still got to make their minds up. You know, they know that come the 18th they've got to make their mind up, and now it's up to us to engage them for the next few months, and I think we can do that, and I think we can win.
Alistair Darling, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.